Today I'm going to demonstrate a provisional cast on with a crochet chain, and then we're going to be picking up out of the chain and moving forward from there. You will be using knitting needles and a crochet hook in the same gauge size. So in this case, I am using size 3¼ knitting needles, millimeters. And I need to also be using a 3¼ inch crochet hook. I could use larger, absolutely, but definitely not smaller. Really important. I am going to be making a crocheted chain with a different color yarn than what I'm going to be knitting with. The reason you want to do this is you want to clearly be able to discern with your eyes what is the crochet chain versus what is your knitting. And we are going to be taking out that crochet chain later, so it's really handy to be able to clearly see what you're taking out versus what stitches you're going to be picking up. The last tip that I want to get across is when you're choosing a yarn to make a crocheted chain, I'm going to recommend a very smooth spun yarn, something that doesn't have a halo effect, and a yarn that doesn't tend to want to spin up on itself. Those of you who are seasoned knitters have probably all had the experience of ripping out stitches in a row, and those little stitches want to fuse together with other stitches, and you end up sitting there with a pair of scissors or picking apart the stitches because the little haloed hairs in the yarn have spun up on themselves and caused a fusion. So we don't want that. We want to avoid that. We are going to be pulling out this crochet chain, and we do not want it fused to our knitting. So let's get started with our crocheted chain. As you know, if you're watching my channel, I'm a continental knitter, so it's really easy for me to translate continental knitting to a crochet chain. If you've never crocheted before, or you haven't done my quick start knitting guide before, take a look at that video. But basically what I'm doing is wrapping my yarn the way I usually do. If you're a left-handed crocheter, you typically wrap opposite, but humor me here. Just wrap in your left hand. If you can at all do it, I think you'll thank me later. We're going to come in here with the crochet hook and just do a little twist and just hold it there. And I'm going to pull the yarn through that loop kind of loosely. I'm going to do that, and notice my crocheted chains that I'm creating are not very tight. I'm going to leave them kind of loose. So you just put the hook in front of the yarn, go under the yarn, rotate the hook down 180 degrees, and pull it right through the stitch that's already there. And then you give it a little room to breathe. Come back in front and under and twist and through. Notice how my finger's coming down. And now I'm going to let a little bit more yarn run over my pinky and over my first finger. You can see it running through my hand. So in, twist, and through. Give a little bit more. That simple. I keep my thumb on the flat section of the crochet hook with the hook side pointing up. Really important to note, that's how it works. And I just rotate my wrist. I don't twist it. That's not the point. You just come in here and rotate your wrist down and pull it through. The reason you have to rotate the whole way down is so you don't get hooked on the sides of that stitch or the top of that stitch. You want to come right through the little point of the stitch. So I'm going to make as many chains as I need cast-on stitches. That'll be plenty, and you can see I've actually gotten bigger as I went. That's not a problem. I'm just going to leave that last one loose. And I'm going to cut my yarn. And I'm just going to pull that yarn through. All right, there's my crocheted chain. And let's take a look at what a crochet chain looks like, because it's kind of important for helping you know where to pick up the stitches. A crochet chain has these nice chain stitches going right down the top. It's flat. They look like little V's going right down. And I think you can see, here's one right here, that little V right there. If I turn the V's down towards my table, on the back I have these little bumps. There's a little bump, and each stitch has a little bump on the back. So if I turn it on the side, you may be able to see this a little better. But each one of these bumps is what we're going to be looking at. There's another one. It's a little easy to get confused with a side of the chain. And see, I just went in the front of the chain, picking up one side or the other. You don't want to pick up a left leg of the chain or a right leg of the chain. You definitely want to be on the back, picking up the back of the chain, the little bump. I call this the backbone, and these are like little vertebrae, and we want to pick those vertebrae up. So let's do that. Let's get out the yarn that I'm going to knit with. Wrap it the way I usually do. So the first stitch I'm going to pick up with the same crochet hook. I'm going to go into that back vertebrae bump. I'm going to go to the right of the stitch and around the back of it this way and just drag it through. So if you're thinking about your whole hand, you're going to come in and get that yarn and pull it through. That's the motion we're going to make with the hook. So in behind and drag it through. I might even decide to do that one more time. Come in, around and behind, and drag it through. And now I have 2 stitches picked up. I'm just going to pinch at the bottom so they don't go anywhere. I'm going to pick up my knitting needle and put those stitches right on my knitting needle. Again, I use the same size hook, so they should fit really nicely. I'm now going to go into the next bump, the next vertebrae, and I'm going to drag that through. Here's what you don't want to do is split your yarn. Do you see how I've picked up some of that chain yarn? I do not want to do that. So I'm going to pull that out and try that again. Go in, pick it up, pull it through. And there I have not gotten the chain yarn on the needle. Let's go again. Every vertebrae needs to have a stitch picked up. I have the flat part of the V down on my fingers. So that flat part, if I flip it over, that flat V part is riding right along my fingers so that I can easily see the bumps one at a time. And just go down and pick them up. You can make a chain much longer than it needs to be. In fact, you can make chains ahead of time if you want and just use them when you need them. You just need one that's as long or longer than you need, that's all. Again, don't pick up your stitches so tight. You know, you want to be able to slide them just like you would if you were knitting. Should be about the same tension. And you can see now why we use 2 different colors of yarn, because I can see clearly what my knitting stitches are going to be versus this chain. When I pick up my stitches on the back and I flip it over, I should see that beautiful chain edge underneath the needle. That should be uninterrupted. I have 14. And from here, you can just start knitting. This was my first row of knits. The way I picked up was knitwise. When I turn it over, you can see I have purls along the back. You can see the yarn was picked up in each of those vertebrae stitches, those bumps on the back. So let me just go ahead and purl this back real quick. I'm going to do a couple of rows and then show you how we take out the chain and what we do with it after that. I've completed knitting a little bit. I am going to go through a bind off here, just kind of pretending that I've finished this side of my work, whatever that is. You might leave it on. So it's kind of cool that a regular bind off edge also gives you that beautiful row of chains, just like a crocheted row gives you with a crochet hook. We are now ready to take out the chain. And as I take out the chain, the blue crochet hook chain, I'm going to be picking up each of these white loops, which are my stitches. So each of these guys, I'm going to be picking up and putting on my needle. So you want to start on the end that has not the V, but the loop of the chain. So right here is my teardrop shaped V stitch. I want to be on the round side, not on the point side. And if you've ever ripped out a chain on a bag of dog food or bird seed or whatever product you purchased, then you know this is exactly the same thing. Should be straightforward, sometimes can be a little tricky or give us trouble, but you'll find your spot, just work on it. So now that I've pulled out that one stitch, the head of the stitch is where I want to be pulling, and you can see when I pull out that stitch, it leaves another stitch. And I can easily pull out that stitch, which leaves another stitch. Now I'm just pulling out chains, but here I've gotten to my knitting. Right there. I have 2 stitches picked up. And let's pick this one out. You can see this stitch is right here, right there, and you can see what happens when I pull out the chain. I already have my needle into that knitted stitch. There's the next knitted stitch that I'm going to get. So I'm going to come in from the back and grab it, and then I'm just going to pop out the blue chain. I do this one at a time. I do not just rip it out. You may decide that's how you want to do it, but I like to know exactly where each of the stitches are so that I don't lose any. So I pick one up and then I pull out the blue chain. Now right there, I did do what I did not want to do, which is split my yarn. And you can see right there, I think, I actually have a little thread of a blue ply picked up. So the way to handle that is just to get scissors and surgically snip that one little ply that's causing the problem. And then you should be able to get that right out. And you can see that was causing the trouble. And I am using 2 wool yarns, which is exactly what I recommended not doing. And you can see it's felting together or kind of spinning up together a little bit. And there we are. to the end, and I have those stitches picked up right here. I had 14. Let's see what I have. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So I know I have the right number. So what can I do with this? I am now going the opposite direction, and I can do a couple of different things, a lot of different things, but I'm going to show you how to just start knitting in the opposite direction. You could also do an I-cord, which is a great edging if you wanted to finish an I-cord without having to pick up stitches at the end and have an extra seam allowance in the back. This would be a great way to do it. See, everything is just nice and smooth and ready to go. It looks like one seamless piece of fabric because it is. I am going to start knitting with a different color yarn so you can see what that actually looks like. There is one little trick here in that because I'm going the opposite way, the stitches are also going the opposite way. So coming in. And just knitting as I normally would each of these. Remember, I was knitting in this direction initially, and stitches have the V at the bottom. So this is a stitch when I was knitting the white, and this is the next stitch over when I was knitting the white, and this is the next stitch over when I was knitting the white. But you can see when I'm going the other direction with the blue, this stitch is not in a column in line with my new darker blue stitches. I now have it split where one half of the stitch is going to this stitch and the other half is coming to this stitch. So you're actually offsetting your stitches by a half of a stitch. Usually it doesn't matter and you will never see it. But just so you know, it is a thing. Let me do a few more rows of stockinette stitch and then we'll take a quick look at it. Here I am, having knitted a few rows just so you can see where we are. And it is a beautiful seamless fabric. It's completely flat and flush. You have no idea that anything's changed. It's exactly like any other row of knitting, and you really cannot tell that those stitches are going the opposite direction. It is a great way to have a provisional cast on and go in two different directions at once or finish up with an I-cord. In this case, I could still finish up with an I-cord and go from there. I could even start working in the round if I picked up on both sides. Lots of cool things you can do. From here, I think I'm just going to bind off regularly and have my little half and half sample. I hope that helps you. Please let me know in the comments what kind of questions you have, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the comments.